Hey everybody, it's Morrion and I'm here with my critique of The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, and this is the first book I've read for my Year with Morrison series on my channel. I will read the brief summary that's in the book and we will get into my critique. The Bluest Eye, published in 1970, is the first novel written by Toni Morrison, winner of the 1993 Nobel Prize in Literature. It is the story of 11-year-old Piccola Breedlove, a black girl in an America whose love for its blonde, blue-eyed children can devastate all others, who prays for her eyes to turn blue so that she will be beautiful, so that people will look at her, so that her world will be different. This is the story of the nightmare at the heart of her yearning and the tragedy of its fulfillment. So Piccola Breedlove is the focus of the story. However, she is not the narrator. The narrator is her equally young friend named Claudia, who talks about the year when they met Piccola Breedlove and how sadly Piccola Breedlove's life changed that year in an unfortunate event involving rape by her father. This is not a spoiler. This is told within the first few pages of the book. So while I still gave this book 5 stars, this is still one of my favorite books, and maybe you're like, Morgan, how can this be your favorite book? It sounds terrible and heartbreaking. It is a hard story to get through at times. However, and this is bringing me to my point, the story is not about Piccola Breedlove, even though she's the main character. While I was on Goodreads, I saw a couple of written reviews, not many, but just a few, where people were like, oh, this was a good book. However, I just wish it focused on Piccola, and Piccola doesn't get to speak much through the book. She doesn't get to tell her own story. And actually, that's a really good analysis. However, she does not get to tell her own story, in my opinion, because this isn't her story. It is the story of black girls in America and the story of the black people that surround her as well. The main reason Piccola thinks she is ugly is because of those around her who tell her she's ugly, who make her feel ugly, and the America that we live in, where white children are the ones who are allowed to be children, who are shown that they are loved and cared about. If you've ever written this book, the first few pages before you actually enter the story is a short clip of the old Dick and Jane stories that kids used to read during that time. I actually used to have my dad's old book of Dick and Jane stories from when he was like in the 2nd grade, and it's all about a white blonde-haired girl and a white blonde-haired boy and their little adventures in their neighborhood, and, you know, their white parents and their literal white picket fence house. And that is brought up throughout the story. Before you enter certain parts of the book, it's broken down into seasons like autumn, summer, spring, fall. I mean winter, because autumn is fall. But why I love this book so much is it shows me how much we actually impact our children in their view on who they are as a society, as parents. Piccola Breedlove's mother is one of the first people who called her ugly. Even with Claudia and her sister, you see how their mother talks to them, beats them when they aren't necessarily doing what she told them to do, or sometimes she mistakes them for, you know, doing something inappropriate, whereas they were really, you know, they were kids and they were trying to solve an issue the best way they could. And this book, of course, on a larger scale, highlights the systematic oppression of like racism and sexism that affects black girls from a very young age through Piccola's story. one of the most interesting aspects was how Toni Morrison describes Piccola drinking from a Shirley Temple mug where it was like shaped into Shirley Temple's face, and how she was drinking white milk out of the cup, and how she just loved Shirley Temple, opposed to Claudia, the main character, who said she hated Shirley Temple because people thought that's, and like how she also hated white baby dolls because people thought she wanted to, you know, be this white girl and also wanted to become a mother, which is interesting, but even though they didn't expand on that. One downside of this book, it does come with Piccola and the unfortunate rape that comes from her father, Charlie. And this is one reason that some people find Toni Morrison to have like problematic, is her image of black men. It describes Charlie's life and his struggles, and how he basically internalizes racism, but takes that hatred of himself out on the women that he comes in contact with, and his daughter ended up being one of them. How being violent and being sexual is the only way that he knows how to show love for the women in his life, and also how he inflicts pain on the women in his life because of how he feels about himself. This is not the best interpretation of that frustration, and even though I get where Toni Morrison is coming from, I think that is definitely something that's iffy in this book, and it's definitely to the extreme. However, she also writes in her afterwards that Piccola is the extreme, that Piccola's life is not the average black girl's life, not even in comparison to the other black girls in the story. But she had to do this to make a larger point, which brings me back to, this is more than Piccola. This is a commentary on racism and sexism and how it affects black girls specifically. And this is why I love this novel, because it made me understand black girlhood more, and it made me understand how, as an adult now, that I could have an effect on changing that. One thing I would do in particular is, like, when I was in grad school, I focused a lot of my literary work on taking apart of how, or deconstructing how black girls were shown in certain books, in certain ways, and how we can change, and how that reflects on real life. And just so you guys can have some other resources if you would like to read into not just the struggles of black girlhood, but how you can help ease these issues, especially if you have black girls in your life, or you're looking to maybe work with a organization that focuses on working with black girls specifically, or you just want some more insight onto what Toni Morrison is reaching on, or what even I'm talking about. I have a couple of actual nonfiction books. One I don't have with me, but it's by the same author, Ruth Nicole Brown. It's called Black Girlhood Celebration. Ruth Nicole Brown is a professor out of Chicago, and runs a program specifically for black girls out of Chicago, and it's called Sula. I think it's Saving Our Lives, Here Are Truths, and it's focused specifically on giving creative resources for black girls. It gives them a safe space to explore their identities and have people, you know, who are genuinely there to help them navigate life from a young age. Black Girlhood Celebration is more of like, I think, how she started the program. I have the book, but I cannot find it. I read it a few years ago. This one is her more recent book, Here Are Truths, The Creative Potential of Black Girlhood. And this one also goes into more depth. It says, this volume examines how Saving Our Lives, Here Are Truths, or Soul Hot, a radical youth intervention, provides a space for the creative performance and expression of black girlhood, and how this creativity informs other realizations about black girlhood and womanhood. I I did not finish this yet, but it's definitely a resource that I plan on getting back to. And the most recent book that I have on Black girlhood is Push Out, the criminalization of Black girls in schools, which is Monique W. Morris. She did a study on the prison to school pipeline on Black girls. So when you usually read about the prison to school pipeline, they focus on Black men and how they push them out like through school, ready to put them in prison, and how that is the same for Black girls. She talks about how they are perceived, how teachers treat them, how they also have to deal with a lot of sexual abuse and just sexuality in general at a young age, which affects school and how people perceive them, and how that in a way gets them in the prison system much faster than other girls, and how they are also targeted in schools when it comes to suspension, expulsion, and, you know, just being overall punished for certain things that most likely like white girls are not punished for. I think that's pretty much what it measures them up to statistically. So I'm not finished this one, but she definitely has resources in here. Like if you have a group, she has like she has questions and ways that you can like repair relationships, and, you know, talking about ways you can also help out with Black girls. And I think this one has some resources as well. All right. Let me know what you think. The bottom comments are a place where we can discuss the Bluest or any other things, any other topics that I brought up in this video. I hope that you enjoyed this first installment of Year with Morrison as far as reviews goes. And if you'd like to follow me in February with my reading, I will be reading Sula, which is Toni Morrison's second book that she published. This is mostly focuses on Black women friendships, and it's also one of my faves of hers. All right, I hope you all have a good day. Stay happy, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.